Get back on your feet again. You are not alone. Circle of old friends right here.
Hi.
Hi.
Alone. Alone. You are not alone.
Donna Kowalczyk has been a Democrat all her life until she switched for Donald Trump.
We need a change. We were hit very badly in the recession of 2007, and we have not recovered in this area at all.
Pennsylvania's Wilkes-Barre is part of America's Rust Belt, the once thriving industrial states now in decline.
Years ago, I've been doing this for 40 years, there were factories everywhere. You had clothing factories, you had shoe factories, you name it, you had it. They're all gone. Everything is gone. We have 2 major colleges right in town. Those kids can't stay here. There's no jobs. It's a disgrace. If you go outside and pan around, we have more vacant houses and empty lots. You can't even give a house away in Wilkes-Barre right now.
Of all the battleground states in this election, the Democrats were convinced they had Pennsylvania in the bag. The people here had supported them in the previous 6 presidential contests. But like so many others, the Democrats underestimated the depth of support for Donald Trump.
The day I saw him come down that escalator in Trump Towers, I was on board. And from that day forward, I started ordering stuff online, pins, and people would come up to me then. It was a way of pulling out Trump voters who were maybe afraid to say that they were supporting him.
Lynette Villano met her new hairdresser through Facebook. They'd both joined a group of Donald Trump supporters.
My mother was a single parent who worked in a toy factory. That's how she supported us her life. She worked in a shoe factory, she worked in a toy factory. So it's been a number of years. But
where is that toy factory now?
Oh, they're gone. They're all gone, yeah.
Where did they go?
Some of them closed up. They went overseas, cheaper labor, union problems. You know, some of them were.
Do you think Donald Trump can bring those factories back, those sorts of jobs? Do you think he can bring manufacturing back?
I think it depends on the manufacturing. I think we need to look at having things made in America. And I think Donald Trump will work with people, with business people, to try and, make sure that they have the opportunity and a reason to stay here.
He was right about one thing.
Donald Trump came to Pennsylvania several times during the campaign. Just weeks before the election, he held a rally here, pledging to bring manufacturing jobs back to the state.
Our country is becoming a third world country. It's time. It's time we bring our country back. It's time we act like intelligent people. It's time that we don't let Mexico and all of these other countries take our jobs, and that's what they're doing. We are going to protect our miners. We are going to protect our steel workers. We are going to protect our factories and our manufacturing.
His methods were very unconventional, very shocking to many Americans, but he continued to drive it home through the end of the race. And what we saw in the results, which were different from the polls, wasn't what we expected, was that these same parts of the country, like Pennsylvania, that have really been hurt over the last 3 decades by massive economic forces, the people there turned out. They decided that there were other issues that were more important than his treatment of women, than some of the demagoguery in the campaign, and that he represented the change that American voters have clearly said they've wanted for a long time.
Donald Trump gave his first and only interview since the election to America's 60 Minutes.
I think it's a moment in time where politicians for a long period of time have let people down. They've let them down on the job front. They've even let them down in terms of the war front. We've been fighting this war for 15 years.
This was the message of your campaign.
We've spent $6 trillion in the Middle East. $6 trillion. We could have rebuilt our country twice. It's unfair what's happened to the people of our country, and we're going to change it. As simple as that.
I've been invited to a barbecue at Robert Katranik's home. It's a short drive from Wilkes-Barre. In 2008, Robert voted for Barack Obama, believing he could bring the country much-needed change. He's fed up, and this time he's putting his faith in Donald Trump.
Robert, that is one serious sign you've got out the front there.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I really love it. It's on every night.
Robert and his mates are the lucky ones. So far, at least, their jobs haven't been threatened by globalisation.
I've been there almost, May will be 20 years. I could go day shift, I could go second shift.
What's attractive about the night shift?
Well, it paid 75 cents more an hour, and the gas price was so high at the time, I just felt it was money.
Like I said, there's no buses in the rural areas, and it's just hard for anybody, everyday worker, to just get to work on the job.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many industries, and when NAFTA came in, they were gone. They had the shoe factories all over the place. They're still vacant. My God, how they could just get rid of our jobs, it's terrible.
Donald Trump said he's going to rewrite NAFTA, the free trade agreement with
We are
Mexico.
happy about that.
What about immigration?
We definitely have to do something about immigration. We got 85 million people on welfare. My God. And then they want to bring more and more and more in, and that's only going to put it on our backs.
So do you want to stop immigration?
Well, the stopping of immigration, that's where it gets really tricky. That's where the media turned it around on Trump. He was saying illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A regular immigrant that goes through the proper channels, he has no problem with that. Our country was founded on that. Become a citizen. That's one of the biggest things we're having a lot of problems with, is these people come in and they're trying to change America to their
them.
country.
Are we about to see a move to a more isolationist America?
I think we will see a more isolationist America. What that means, how that looks, we don't know the answer yet. One of the things that Trump made clear during the campaign was that everything he says is an opening negotiating position. And we don't know what he's going to follow through with, what he's not going to follow through with. Most of the big promises he made during the campaign had asterisks next to them and fine print.
Footnote.
Yeah, a footnote, where he could sort of, back off it later on. I mean, he's already said, for instance, that, the wall that he promised at every single rally he would build across the southern border could be a fence in places. And he's made clear that it doesn't have to go across the whole border. I mean, we could end up with like 5 miles of wall and
Rather than
100 miles of fences.
Riding the subway in New York, I feel like a guest at a funeral. Donald Trump's hometown is shattered by an election result no one here saw coming. And so they've responded by building a wall made of paper.
When I first saw this wall, I got really emotional, honestly. Because I work over here and I pass it every day, but I stopped to read it and I was just crying the other night.
Even the day after the election, you felt it. Everyone was quiet, everyone was sad.
For New Yorkers who overwhelmingly voted for Hillary Clinton, this has become a kind of wailing wall, a place to come and grieve for what might have been and pay respect to the values they firmly believe Donald Trump's presidency undermines.
I think as a gay man, I think of my community, I think of the Supreme Court, I think of the rights and the protections that we've been granted over the past couple of years. And there's a real fear that the new administration is going to revoke those promises.
People have also taken to the streets. tens of thousands across the country. The largest protests have been here in New York.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay!
Go away!
What are you chanting?
Racist, sexist, anti-gay, Donald Trump, go away.
But he was elected, democratically elected.
Right, so I think that the reason for the protests isn't to protest the fact that he's going to be president, but what he
just said go away.
It's what he's stood for and what he's run his platform on.
He insulted women, he insulted minority, he insulted the Muslims, he insulted so many different type of people that he needs to come out to apologize.
Donald Trump has got to go.
I don't think Donald Trump cares at all about the protests. Donald Trump's an attention addict, and he's at the top of the world right now. I think he's really waited his whole life for a moment like this.
On Twitter, he said the number of people protesting was small, that they were predominantly professional protesters, but clearly that's not true.
Do you mean you're telling me you're surprised that Donald Trump lies? Donald Trump is a serial fabulist. It's to the point of almost being pathological. And that's not going to change when he's president. Donald Trump will not hesitate to lie if he sees it in his short-term self-interest.
Much of the anger on the streets is about the country's complicated electoral system. It'll deliver the presidency to Donald Trump, even though more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton.
It's important to remember that he didn't win the popular vote, he narrowly won the electoral vote, and if he tries to push through many of the things that he wants to push through, there will be a lot of discontent.
So you don't think he has a mandate?
No.
Now that he's headed for Washington, those hoping for a less divisive Donald Trump look set for disappointment. One of the most influential figures appointed to his White House team is Steve Bannon, the new president's chief strategist.
You have begun a political revolt that's many years in the making.
The Democrats accuse him of anti-Semitism, a claim the Trump camp rejects.
This is a man who told his ex-wife that he didn't want his children going to school with Jews.
Steve Bannon is a former banker and a far-right ideologue. He made his millions investing in the TV show Seinfeld.
Our lives! What kind of lives are these?
He's the former chairman of the incendiary website Breitbart News. It runs headlines like "Birth control makes women unattractive and crazy," and "Would you rather your child had feminism or cancer?" and "Political correctness protects Muslim rape culture."
We got lemons, but we're gonna make a hell of a glass of lemonade!
Omarosa Manigault was another who travelled with Donald Trump during the election campaign and worked hard for his victory.
When I say Trump train, I want you to say choo-choo. Y'all ready? Trump train! Trump train! Trump train!
Omarosa, what was your role during the campaign?
I was the director of African American engagement for the Trump campaign.
And what did that mean?
It means I was responsible for engaging faith leaders or rights leaders, the community as a whole, to making sure that their issues were addressed and to encourage them to turn out for our candidate.
Omarosa is now a member of Donald Trump's transition team, helping him prepare for his new role.
The Democratic Party has always had a stronghold on African American turnout. Unfortunately, the African American community has been loyal to the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party hasn't been loyal to African Americans. They have made promises to the community that just have never come to fruition.
Omarosa met Donald Trump 13 years ago as a contestant on his hit TV series, The Apprentice.
I'm Donald Trump. From this desk, I built over 100 companies. And now I'm looking for someone new to run one of my many companies. I'm looking for someone who's a tough negotiator. I'm looking for someone who's a dynamic leader. I'm looking for the apprentice.
I went from the
projects to the White House. How successful was that? You don't sit with the President of the United States by not being successful. I've been successful again and again and again, and it works for me.
Omarosa is no stranger to Washington. She worked in the Human Resources Department at the White House for Bill Clinton.
So you're a Democrat?
I was a Democrat. Now I'm a Trumplican. Now I'm a very proud Trumplican. And there is a whole army of Trumplicans ready to go to battle for now President-elect Trump.
Can you understand the sentiment from those pouring onto the streets, protesting about some of the language Donald Trump used during the election campaign? The fact that they found it quite insulting, Muslims, Mexicans, Latinos?
President-elect Trump is not a politician. Now he is.
Now he is.
But at the time, when he stepped up to announce that he, as a private citizen, coming from the private sector, was going to run to be president, he didn't have some brilliant speechwriters, as his opponent had, to write the proper things, to say the exact proper thing, to pander to certain people. He was a citizen who observed things that troubled him.
Preparations are already underway here at the White House for Inauguration Day, when Donald Trump will be officially named the 45th President of the United States. He has exactly 61 days between now and then to make 4,000 appointments, people who help him deliver on his promises and get on with the business of managing government.
Atlantic City is a long way from Washington, but they sure know the Trump name well here. The Trump family owned 40% of the hotel rooms and casinos until the downturn came in the 90s. He fled town, sending his over-leveraged businesses into bankruptcy, no fewer than 4 times. But far from feeling any shame about that, it's become just another one of his boasts.
I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never. But out of hundreds of deals...
But, sir,
excuse me.
That's your line, but your companies have gone bankrupt.
What am I saying? Out of hundreds of deals that I've done, hundreds, on 4 occasions, I've taken advantage of the laws of this country, like other people.
Well, sir, let's just talk about the latest example, which is Trump Entertainment Resorts, which went bankrupt in 2009. In that case alone, lenders to your company lost over $1 billion and more than 1,100 people were laid off.
Well,
is that the way that you run the country?
I had the good sense, and I've gotten a lot of credit in the financial pages. 7 years ago, I left Atlantic City before it totally cratered, and I made a lot of money in Atlantic City, and I'm very proud of it. I want to tell you that. Very, very proud of it.
Donald Trump claims to be a brilliant deal maker. The track record, however, shows that in the most important deal-making part of his life, he was an abysmal deal maker. He has said that he's the king of debt, that he's financially astute. The reality is that he's very financially undisciplined, and to the point where he almost went personally bankrupt, and he went through 6 corporate bankruptcies. He's anything but a savant when it comes to financial management.
America's new president will become the wealthiest person in history to take over the White House. To manage any potential conflicts of interest, the billionaire says he'll shift his businesses to a blind trust to be managed by his adult children. His sons, Donald and Eric, his daughter Ivanka, and her husband, Jared Kushner.
It is hard to put into words the experience or the emotion when your father becomes President of the United States of America. We had enormous pride, joy. It's incredibly exciting, and we're very grateful for the opportunity, and we take that opportunity very serious.
Tim O'Brien wrote an authorised biography of Donald Trump and got to know the family well.
We've got no reason to believe that the Trump children themselves bring any special intellectual or experiential magic to what they're going to do during this administration. And
so why bring them into it?
Because I think he trusts them, which is a good reason. I also think that they're going to self-deal, which is a bad reason.
The conflict of interest.
The conflict of interest. They're going to use every opportunity they can to make money at the expense of sound public policy and at the expense of the interests of the majority of Americans that they're supposed to serve. Donald Trump, his entire life, has been a short-term money grubber. That's the single biggest animating force other than his need for attention in his life. And you can't understand him without really locking onto that.
How will Congress make sure that when Donald Trump makes decisions, he puts the American people first and not his business interests?
I'm not very worried. Look, how much richer you want the guy to be? He's pretty rich now. And so he's serving without salary. He announced that recently, of which would be a pretty modest amount of money compared to his net worth. But we don't have any reason to believe that he's going to engage in any kind of activity that is corrupt, that would enrich himself at the expense of the American people. If he does, I think he'll find that he's in the most scrutinized office in the world.
Tom Cole is a senior Republican congressman and chairman of the Budget Committee.
You've been in this place since 2002, 14 years. Does that make you part of the swamp?
Well, I actually pointed out if we're part of the swamp, they didn't change us very much in the election. They left Republicans in control in both houses, but they kicked the Democrats out of the executive branch. So that must be where the swamp is, at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue.
He wants to increase spending and lower taxes. Is that something America can afford with a debt of $14 trillion?
Now, well, it depends on how it does it. And it can if it does something that nobody talked about much in the campaign. The real drivers of debt and spending in the United States are entitlement programs, a classic social safety net. But if you're going to do these other things, huge infrastructure programs, increasing funding for the military, then you're going to have to find the money somewhere.
I will build a great, great wall.
Is Donald Trump someone you think you'll be able to negotiate well with in the Congress?
I do, although, to be fair, we don't have any history, obviously, to go by. He's a pretty unusual figure, to say the least. First time we've ever had a president in the entire history of the country that had no previous public service. This is a very unusual figure. All we know is what we learned in the course of the campaign. Obviously, he's been a public celebrity for quite a while. We know he's a successful business guy. But anybody that thinks he's going to operate by conventional political rules, I think could just look at the campaign and say that's not likely to be the case.
I think certain women are more beautiful than others, to be perfectly honest. And it's fortunate I don't have to run for political office.
Donald Trump called you Miss Piggy.
Yes, Miss Piggy, Miss Housekeeping. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy. I can do anything.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I have great respect for women. Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
I want to know how you felt when you saw that Access Hollywood tape with Donald Trump boasting about sexually assaulting women. How did you feel when you heard him describe other women as fat pigs and disgusting animals?
I worked in the Clinton administration during impeachment, during every scandal you can ever imagine. So you have to forgive me, I'm a little desensitized to scandal.
But I'm asking you about the current president.
I appreciate that because it's important that we talk about, when people ask me about the tape, it's nothing that I would ever excuse or defend. There's no response to that. He apologized to his family and to this country. It with him? God, no, it's not my business. He discussed it with his wife. I believe that's who he has to have the discussion with.
What about what Donald Trump said about women when he was caught on that tape boasting about sexual assault?
Well, typical men's banter.
Men's banter?
Yes, when they're alone, that's what they do.
Is it excusable?
It's not excusable, but how many people have a microphone hidden when they think they're talking to a buddy?
What about the fact that he called certain high-profile women fat pigs,
Rosie
disgusting
O'Donnell.
animals. Not just Rosie O'Donnell, Arianna Huffington. He was also very disparaging towards Megyn Kelly after she asked him the question at the debate. Did any of that?
I don't care what you call women as long as you help improve our country. This is coming from a fat woman.
He says what he believes. He says what he thinks. I heard that from a lot of people. People are tired of political correctness. When Hillary Clinton made reference to a basket of deplorables, that was like lighting the campaign on fire.
Did you take personal offense at that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right?
There are a lot of people my age who didn't have the opportunity to go to college. But we always worked for everything we wanted in life. That's one thing this area had, was a great work ethic. And to be looked down upon by the elite media, it really is very insulting. And especially when they would always use the term uneducated. Life experience is an education.
Donald Trump will never, ever be president of the United States.
I get it. Donald Trump can seem appealing until you take a closer look. Much like the lunch buffet at a strip club, or the NFL, or having a pet chimpanzee. Sure, it seems fun, but someday Coco's gonna tear your fucking limbs off.
Your critics say you tend to exaggerate, you have a problem with the truth. Is this a prime example?
I'm not looking for credit, but what I don't want is when I raise millions of dollars, have people say, like this sleazy guy right over here from ABC. He's a sleaze in my book. You're a sleaze because you know the facts, and you know the facts well.
Donald Trump is less popular than lice. Question 23 from the poll. What do you have a higher opinion of, Donald Trump or lice? The proportion of Americans who say they have a higher opinion of lice when compared to Donald Trump, 54%.
You set a new bar today for being contentious with the press corps, kind of calling us losers to our faces and all that.
No, not all of you, just many of you.
All right, fine. Enough of us. Is this what
you did?
Is this what it's going to be like covering you if you're president?
Yeah, it is. Let me tell you,
we're going to have this kind of confrontation in the press room?
Okay, yeah, it is going to be like this, David.
Interestingly, he's a creature of the press. He's the friendliest press candidate behind the scenes that we've ever seen at times. Calls reporters on their phones. He responded to my phone calls more frequently than Hillary Clinton's communications advisor did. I'm not kidding. That's a fact.
The New York Times called Donald Trump a liar.
We did have, for I think the first time I can recall, maybe the first time ever, a front page story that didn't call him a liar, it called something he said a lie. And that lie was that President Obama was not born in the United States, which Mr. Trump, Donald J. Trump, repeated for years. The paper concluded that that was a lie, that there was intent. That was a first for us. Our editors felt strongly that they had to call it for what they saw in that case.
The New York Times coverage of Donald Trump, would you say it's been fair and impartial?
I think it was fair. I also think it was impartial. It was objective, but it was objective in a way that took us to places we were not used to going. So I wrote about this a bit myself. There was always a fear, would it seem imbalanced, but if one candidate is uttering far more falsehoods than the other candidate, you can't balance that. That is what it is.
ISIS is making a tremendous amount of money because they have certain oil camps, right? They have certain areas of oil that they took away. They have some in Syria, some in Iraq. I would bomb the shit out of them.
You talk about him being a strong man and being tough, but that also makes the rest of the world a little anxious. He's threatened to scale back military support for countries in Australia's region. What does that mean for security in the Asia Pacific?
The information that he had as a candidate is profoundly different than the information he will have as commander-in-chief. And once he has those top secret information and that top secret strategy from his generals, he will be able to devise
a response to all of those issues. As a candidate, you look at the world through your experiences. As you know from political science, how you campaign and how you govern are two different things.
Can he possibly deliver all the promises he made during the campaign?
You take the top 20 issues from a campaign. This campaign was an 18-month, 19-month campaign. You take the top 20 and you pray that you can address them in 4 years. All of them, I don't know that any candidate has ever delivered every single campaign promise, but he is a man of his word, and he will give it a good try.
It's impossible to know exactly what a Trump presidency might achieve. The test in Pennsylvania is whether their lives get any better over the next 4 years.
Does it matter if he can get these things done?
To me it does. That's why we voted for him. We believe he can do it, or we wouldn't have voted for him.
And if he doesn't?
I would be very disappointed. I'll sit here and cry like a baby if he doesn't do any of that. I believe he has too much gall not to do it.
If you want a lover, I'll do anything you ask me to. And if you want another kind of love, I'll wear a mask for you. If you want a partner, take my